Hello everyone, this is Javier, tax researcher for Nomad Capitalist, and today I want to talk about Grenada, an island in the Caribbean I'm sure you all know due to its citizenship by investment program. But today's video is not going to focus on immigration or Grenada's excellent citizenship by investment program. It's going to focus on my specialty, tax, so that if you get that passport, you know what's in it for you if you decide to relocate to the island of Grenada. Let's dive in. All right, guys, so I'm Javier. I'm the tax guy here at Nomad Capitalist, and something I found interesting is that we probably have a ton of videos out there talking about citizenship by investment in the Caribbean. You know, we've talked about Grenada, Antigua, St. Kitts, Dominica. Oftentimes, our clients, just out of curiosity, will say, okay, great, I'm getting the passport, but then what happens with the taxes? Do I have any tax consequences if I get the passport? Is it a good place to relocate to and claim tax residence, taking advantage of the fact that I'm already a citizen of that country or that I'm going to become a citizen of that country? I realized that oftentimes during our one-to-one consultations, these questions came up, but we had no content on it on YouTube. So I decided to do a series of videos about each one of the Caribbean citizenship by investment programs to talk to you about exactly what taxation is like in those individual countries. So, if you want to learn more about citizenship by investment programs, I do recommend you look at some of our other videos done by one of my immigration colleagues that can tell you more about the donation amounts, who qualifies as a dependent, the privileges you get with the passport, and so forth. Today's video is going to focus exclusively on tax. And so, let's start with the island of Grenada. So, Grenada is oftentimes a choice for very specific types of clients here at Nomad Capitalist. I would say just a general overview, Grenada obviously has good visa-free travel around the world. You've got, the European Union, you've got the UK, you've got Ireland. Grenada is the only island of the 5 that offer citizenship by investment in the Caribbean that could potentially offer E2 investor visa access to the United States. Not all countries have this access to this very particular visa, which is personally one of my favorite visas for the US. If you become a citizen of Grenada by the Citizenship by Investment Program, you can have access to this. Now, do keep in mind, since the Amigos Act came into effect in the United States, since it came into law, it is no longer sufficient to simply become a citizen of Grenada by investment. You now also have to be domiciled in Grenada for about 3 years in order to be able to actually qualify and be eligible for this visa, but that's a subject for another video. Needless to say, Grenada is a very interesting passport from the immigration side of things. Now, what happens if somebody says, okay, I'm a citizen of Grenada, might as well move there, might as well see what the tax scene is like? So the first thing I want to clarify, and this is especially for Americans who often get this confused because unfortunately it is the way things work in the US. What you have to understand is, other than the United States of America and to a far lesser extent Eritrea, no country on earth really has citizenship-based taxation. Every other country on earth has something called residence-based taxation, which can then vary. It can be territorial, it can be worldwide, it can be remittance-based, but ultimately what determines whether or not you are a tax resident of that country is the fact that you live in that country, that you are a resident of that country. The only real country where citizenship comes into effect to determine one's tax residence would be the United States of America. Now, you do find certain situations in which certain countries may tax certain citizens in extraordinary circumstances. Some countries will actively go after you 3 years after you've left if you go to a tax haven. Other countries, like my homeland of Venezuela, will tax citizens unless they can prove that they have a tax home somewhere else. But globally speaking, the only country that does this on a general scale, regardless of where you live, regardless of whether or not you have another tax residence, is the United States of America. So first thing to note, especially for my American friends, but anyone out there listening, if you get Grenada citizenship by investment, you will not be subject to tax in Grenada. Let me say that again. If you get the Grenadian passport through investment, you are not subject to taxation in Grenada. So, when are you subject to tax in Grenada? Grenada has a very simple days test. You spend 6 months on the island, 183 days, you're a tax resident of Grenada. You spend less than 183 days, you're not a tax resident of Grenada. It's as simple as that. A days test. You count how many days you were in Grenada. If you go over 183 or 183 or over, then you are a tax resident of Grenada. If you don't, you're not. As simple as that. And this is the same thing that applies to tourists, citizens, lawful residents, temporary residents, permanent residents, etc. So that's number one. You can perfectly have the passport and not be a tax resident. Now, Let's say that for some reason you really want to go down to Grenada. Now, we've had some clients who just get the passport, never go there, and just use it as a travel and identification document. That's completely fine. And we've had other clients that really actively want to go to these jurisdictions and see how life is like, what life is like. They want to go down there and see if they can potentially relocate to a place like Grenada. Assuming you spend 6 months or more in Grenada, you'll be happy to know that Grenada actually has a territorial tax system. So among the citizenship by investment islands in the Caribbean, it is among the most friendly or the friendliest. If you go to Grenada, you will only be taxed on Grenadian source income, similar to what happens in Panama. Essentially, if you have income that is locally sourced within Grenada, you're paying tax in Grenada. If, however, you bought Grenadian citizenship by investment and you're relocating to Grenada, but you have a global investment portfolio, you got your stocks in the US, your stocks in the UK, you have your investments in Europe, your real estate all over the world, that income is simply not subject to tax in Grenada. Provided that you're bringing in money from abroad, that you have foreign source income, Grenada is a tax neutral jurisdiction for you. And this can be interesting for Americans, for example. Why? Because, one of the ways in which you qualify, for example, for the foreign earned income exclusion, there are two. One is spending 330 days outside the US. The other one is having a bona fide home, being a bona fide resident of a foreign country. Bona fide residence can be very subjective. You have to prove that you have genuine links to another country. You have to plead your case before the IRS. And this can be challenging. It is not as objective as spending 330 days. So you'll tell me, I'm American. Why would I want to go for the hardest test if I can just spend 330 days outside the US and get it? Well, it depends on exactly what your profile is. So if you go through the bona fide residence test, just to put it in simple terms, you have a right to spend more time in the US. So if you're the kind of person who doesn't want to renounce US citizenship, but you want to make sure that you're able to spend significant time in the US, or more significant than just, let's say, 30 days a year, give or take, then the bona fide residence test might be right for you. Now, why am I saying all of this? If you're American and you get Grenada citizenship by investment, that is a big commitment to the country. And that is a way of showing the IRS that you really are intending to make Grenada your home. And on top of that, if you decide to also trigger tax residence in Grenada, let's say you spend 6 months there, you also buy a home, you establish some genuine links to Grenada, that can also help you claim the foreign earned income exclusion through bona fide residence. You're allowed to spend a bit more time in the US, traveling back and forth, and at the same time, you're a tax resident of a jurisdiction that is neutral for you. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're an American, you'll always be subject to US taxation, regardless of where you go, of where you are in the world, and regardless of whether or not you spend one single day in the United States of America. You still have to file your 1040 every year. You still have to file that 5471 if you have a foreign corporation. You still have to be mindful of gift and estate taxes. All that remains the same. But by moving abroad, you can get a broad range of tax advantages, even as an American. It'll be harder to get to zero, but you can still get to very low taxes. And for that, a key thing to consider in your strategy is a tax-neutral jurisdiction like Grenada. So imagine that you've got your foreign investments. As an American living in Grenada, you just have to worry about the US side of the taxation equation. You don't have to worry about Grenada because Grenada is territorial. But again, the citizenship helps you more easily claim that foreign earned income exclusion through bona fide residence. The other element that I think is very interesting of Grenada is the fact that Grenada specifically does not tax capital gains, meaning that if you're a stock trader, if you trade Bitcoin, if you have assets that are appreciating in value, right, and a lot of your wealth comes from the appreciation that your assets have undertaken, then Grenada might be an excellent place for you. And this applies to everyone. So for Americans, it would be tax neutral, as I've just explained. They would only have to worry about the US side of the equation and wouldn't have to worry about Grenada. For anyone else, let's say we have a Canadian or a UK citizen or a European national who obtains Grenadian citizenship by investment, you can simply relocate to your new country. Keep in mind, you are a citizen. You have that passport. You are part of Grenada. So basically, what happens is you can relocate there as a full citizen. You don't have to ask for permission. You just live there. That's your home. Americans, tax neutral. Europeans, Brits, and Canadians, you can just go down there, claim tax residence there, and provided that you've departed properly from your home country, you can divorce the tax net of Canada, the UK, or any other European country, move to Grenada, enjoy your new citizenship that you invested in, and also enjoy those capital gains completely free of tax. Obviously, the other element also applies. If you're a Brit or a Canadian and you have foreign source income and you've departed properly, you only have to worry about Grenadian tax. Grenada doesn't tax that. Therefore, you've optimized your taxes internationally, globally. So there you have it, all the benefits that Grenada could potentially offer to those who claim citizenship by investment and who are also considering potentially exploiting some of the tax benefits that Grenada can offer. If you want to learn more about Grenada from an immigration perspective or from a tax perspective, be sure to drop a comment down below, Grenada Nomad Capitalist, hit the subscribe button, follow us on Instagram, and if you're ready to take action, nomadcapitalist.com/apply, and I'll see you in the next video.